If you're a real estate agent and you're tired of cold calling, door knocking, and spending money on ads, then subscribe to this podcast. We discuss leveraging the power of YouTube for your real estate business and how these strategies earned us over $1 million in GCI our first year in real estate. My name is Levi Lascsak and my partner is Travis Plumb. Let's get started. Okay, well let's get started. We got some peeps in here kicking off. So this is YouTube for real estate. Thank you all for joining us today. And I'm joined here by my trusty co-host and sidekick, the Wizard of Oz, Chrissy Owens, and the man, the myth, the legend, Matt LaMarche, making a cameo. I was about to say appearance. Yeah. What was I going to say? I was going to almost say experience. It almost is like an experience now to have Matt in here.
I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, welcome, Matt. We've missed you for several months now. It's good to hear your voice. So, all right, well, good. We're going to get this kicked off today. I mean, what we're talking about today is camera confidence, and this comes up as a question quite a bit as far as, how do I gain confidence on the camera? Well, the simple answer would be practice, right? I mean, practice. That's the simple answer. And I know that may not seem that simple for a lot of people. And I just want to always remind people to think about the first time you ever started anything. You can go back as far as you want to. I mean, the thing is, walking, right? We all had to learn to walk. If you really want to go back that far, we all had to learn how to walk. The only thing is that back then, I'm not sure if we knew how to give up, right? It was just instinctively that we kept trying until we eventually walked. And so that's the thing, is like now we're a lot older, a lot smarter, and now we can think about things. And so then we can also start thinking about limiting beliefs. And I think that's what really holds people back, is they just kind of get stuck in their head sometimes. So think back to school, whatever you went through, what was challenging? What have you been really proud of accomplishing in your life? And did it seem awkward? Was it difficult? Did you not want to do it in the beginning? But think about that end result. For some, like I said, you could go, but you probably may not remember walking, but think about something that you did in school, maybe rehearsing for a school play. If you've ever done that before and you had to memorize anything, think about that. How was it in the beginning? I remember in high school, we had to memorize the Canterbury Tales. Now think about this. This was, I'm about to turn 43. So you could say this was 25 years ago, the Canterbury Tales. And to this day, that I was 18 years old, and I could at least kick that poem off by saying, "One that April with the shortest sota, the druth of March have perished in the rota, and bad that every vein and switch liquor, which thereto engendered is the floor. One zephyr sake of the swait of breath, the spirit hath in every holton hath the tinder cropis, and the young sonas," and somewhere on from there. But it's amazing how, that's funny. From 25 years ago, I can still recite the first part of the Canterbury Tales, because that was a school assignment that we had to memorize in some form of a different language. I don't know, that was like Old English or whatever that, I forget what that was. And I remember looking at that. It's a lot longer and thinking, well, this makes no sense. First of all, I can hardly make out the translation. But then to memorize that, the only way you do that is just through practice. And I remember, in my room, recording it on a cassette tape and putting that cassette tape in my dual cassette player, right? Remember when you had the stereo? And I got that whenever I was 18. It was so cool. You had the dual cassette. Matt, you could probably remember this stuff too, right? The dual cassette player with the CD on the top portion of it. Remember those?
Absolutely, of course.
Amazing, right? I mean, like the greatest invention of the 1990s right there was the combo dual cassette recorder with the CD player on top. I mean, that thing was amazing. And I recorded myself on a cassette tape and put it in there and then played it back and would listen to myself reciting the poem while reciting the poem out loud at the same time, and was able to do that. And it just, at one point, what's funny about that sort of thing, and if you haven't thought about this, think about it. Whenever you do something and you do it over and over and over again, and sometimes it just feels like you're not going to get to the end point, or when is this going to click, or when is this going to happen? And you remember, and I would recite that poem 20, 30, 40 times. And then sometimes you just got to stop. Sometimes you got to stop and you got to walk away. You got to go take a break. You need to come back the next day. Whatever the case may be, you just got to stop and say, okay, come back to it. And then what's amazing is whenever you do stop and come back to it, you can usually get through 70, 80, 90% of it. And then it makes it a lot easier to cap off the backside of it. So whatever we're doing, and I just remember, and what's funny is that's exactly what I did to memorize my intros for videos. Now, here's the thing is that, I prefer freestyling over scripting, because every time I've talked to somebody about scripting, it takes a long time to try to, first of all, completely write out a video. If you've ever tried to do that, not something we recommend. It takes a lot to try to pre-plan that. Now, it's much easier to have your bullet points. And what we always encourage people is the fact that your material, your content, it is in your head. And if I came to your neighborhood tomorrow and asked you to show me around town and show me homes, and asked you, what do you like about this neighborhood? What do you not like? What's down the street? What is this close by? How far is it? You could walk me through all of that. You don't need a script. You don't need notes. You don't need any of that. You would sit there and drive me around in the car if we were riding together, or at the next house if we sat down for coffee or something. You could probably talk easily for 10, 20, 30 minutes. It's funny, some real estate agents, they're talkers, but then they say, well, I don't know what to say on camera. And it's like, well, you have no problem talking my ear off, right? But the thing is that your content, because your content is your area. It's your neighborhoods. It's your suburbs. It's where you grew up. And if you just move to an area, it's learning, it's learning all the new things. Get out there and explore. Use that as a time to share your experiences moving to a new area, because guess what? A lot of people are probably going to be in your same shoes shortly thereafter. So your content. And so, but still, the beginning of the video, and we talk about having a hook, you'll see this in pretty much any type of video content, is that you want to start out with a hook, whether that's short form, long form, or anything else. Right now, they say you have 3 seconds to grab somebody's attention. I hear anywhere from 3 to 7 seconds. But to grab somebody's attention that quickly, especially if they're scrolling on short form content, you definitely have a very short window of time. Now, if they search something on YouTube, click on it, they're probably going to be more inclined to stay a little bit longer, which is why I typically start all of the videos. So you're thinking about moving to, I've just done this over and over and over again to where, maybe that's not as exciting or clickbaity or intriguing. I don't know what it is, but the thing is that I'm looking for a very specific audience. I'm not concerned about virality or 100,000 views. Those are not the metrics I'm looking for. I am literally looking for people that want to make a move. And so if I say you're thinking about moving to Frisco, Texas, I literally want them to shake their head yes or no, whether they're doing it physically or inside of their head, shaking their head yes or no. If they shake their head yes, or they say, yeah, I am thinking about moving to Dallas, then I want them, they'll probably stay on that video because they're probably in research mode. They're probably thinking about making that move and they want to learn more. Now, if they're not thinking about it, or if they're not thinking about moving to Frisco or Plano or Allen, Texas, and they say, well, okay, well, no, I'm not thinking about it. Then if they jump off, I'm okay with that too, because I believe that tells the algorithm that they're not necessarily interested in that particular suburb. And if they click over, if they're not interested in Frisco and they click over to an Allen video, and they start watching Alan, well, likely YouTube will serve them more Alan videos. And so that's what I want. But at the beginning, I did memorize the intro because the hook is always going to be a little bit different depending on your video. You do want that to be unique. And what I'm getting to is that I believe this ties into camera confidence, because if you can start your videos off pretty much very similar or the same way, or have your own cadence or your own flow, then I think that's going to help. It's going to help, with camera confidence, because I know if I'm in, let's say I was at the farmer's market, the other day, I say, hey, so you're thinking about moving to Dallas, Texas, and you want to know about what there is to do around the downtown area. Well, right here, we are in the farmer's market, which, as you can see, downtown is literally a couple of blocks away. You can walk down here. There's plenty of shops, restaurants. I kind of start talking them through a little summary. And in this video, we're actually going to walk you through and show you the inside, the outside, what there is to do around the farmer's market, some of the cool stuff you can get. So if that's what you're interested in, stick around, because we're going to get after it, And so I'm kind of premising the video. And if you're kind of getting a summary, I understand my hook. I'm going to have my hook, and then I'm going to kind of give a little summary. That's a little unscripted, but whenever I move into the next part, that is a scripted portion, to where if I say, hey, if this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is about living in Dallas, Texas, then subscribe below, tap the bell for notifications so you can be the first to learn about the current market in Dallas. And then I can go into my next portion, which is so that's the call to action to subscribe. And then I have the call to action after that for them to give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, whether, happy to help you make a smooth move to Dallas. That portion is memorized. And I followed the exact same format. Anytime I've had to memorize something, is I write it down. I will record it. Right now, you can record it on your phone as a voice memo, of course, and then play it back. And then I would read what I wrote down out loud while I'm listening to myself say it to myself. So basically, I'm shutting off any opportunity for attention deficit to kick in, or distractions or squirrels or anything like that. I'm getting a sensory overload of audio, visual, voice, everything. I'm getting it from all angles, and I'm absorbing that portion that I want to memorize, which is really just the intro and the call to action. That's it. But see, that is the anchor. It's the anchor to your video, and it's the anchor in marketing as well. So if you have that anchor point, which is an intro, and if I played the Friends theme music right now, or I played Seinfeld's theme music right now, most everybody that I know would likely associate that song to those TV shows. And pick your favorite TV show. They have a song to it. They have a little intro. They have a beginning portion of it, and that syncs up, and that becomes an anchor. So no matter where you're at, day, night, weekend, month, year, America, Europe, it doesn't matter. If you hear that Friends theme song, you're probably going to immediately think Friends, period. And so if you have that anchor, it anchors for your viewer, but it also anchors you. It anchors you in the fact that now you have the opportunity to free flow into your topics. And if you're out and about, if you're doing a neighborhood video, I don't script any of that, because again, the biggest part for me is to look at that camera dead in the lens and pretend that my good buddy Matt LaMarche is with me. If Matt came to Dallas tomorrow and I wanted to tell him about the farmer's market and we were right there, I could do that. I could tell him everything he needed to know, and then walk him around and explain things to him as we walk through that. The only difference is now I'm doing it with a camera versus him in person. And this is where I'm talking to him individually in the camera. And this is something else you want to always keep in mind when you make videos. I would tend to avoid staying away from, hey, y'all, hey, everybody, hey, guys, that's kind of very general. Whenever we say you, or, so that's why I say, so you're thinking about moving to Dallas, Texas, that is very singular. It makes that experience, that viewing experience, very intimate, makes it more unique. It makes it one-on-one type of way. So I'm having a direct conversation with the viewer, not the viewers, with the viewer, so that I can provide them value and talk them through that. Now, that's for an outside video, but I'm still going to have the same type of intro and call to action in the beginning. And that just helps me free flow into the rest of the content. Now, is it a good idea to have an understanding of what I'm going to talk about? Sure. But I've also developed a flow for my outside videos, my neighborhood videos, that I pretty much follow the same format, and it makes it a lot easier. Now, whenever I'm indoors or I'm in the office, that's where bullet points really come into play, because the thing is that you think about it, what do people ask you questions about your area in the form of? It may be the form of a sentence, but it's actually a bullet point. So if I said, hey, Matt, how's the weather in Atlanta? Weather is your bullet point. And Matt could probably tell me all about the weather in Atlanta. And I could say, do you like it or do you hate it? Well, I like it here, I don't like it there. If I say, Matt, can you tell me about the traffic in Atlanta? He's going to be able to tell me about the traffic in Atlanta. All right, is it good or is it bad? Is it reasonable? Is it manageable? Or is it completely a nightmare? He could tell me that. But the thing is if he's making a video about the good and the bad of Atlanta, he knows the information. All he needs to do is write down weather, traffic, cost of living, gas price. I don't know. You could go down the list. You could go down, everything that you like or don't like, median home price, in the city, outside of the city. You could just make a quick bullet point list and think about it. If somebody were to ask you about that one thing, the information. And so that's why in a video in the office, it's very simple, I believe, if you still have your hook and your intro to move into your office video, all you need is your bullet points from there. And if you have your bullet points, then just, again, you want to look at that camera and have a conversation with that camera as if you were sitting right across the table from a client of yours. But going back to the memorization of just an intro, if you kind of have that, I believe that helps build camera confidence. First of all, you don't feel like you don't know where to start every single video. You're like, oh, I know where I'm going to start. I'm going to have a little hook, a little summary. I'm going to do my little intro. I'm going to do my little call to action. And then I'm going to get into the meat and potatoes of my video. And so from there, that gives you a good system, a good flow, and you have that planned out. But if you have your intro and your call to action memorized, that becomes the anchor of your video, not only for the viewer, but for yourself. And it makes it so much easier, in my opinion, to be able to, move forward from there. And then remember, everything can be mostly cleaned up in editing. So again, when you're making an office video and you want to talk about the good and the bad of Atlanta, Georgia, then you talk about weather. Weather is your first bullet point, or traffic is your first bullet point, or cost of living, or food, or culture, or diversity, whatever the case may be. You can have those in there, and then you just stop for a second, look over, okay, my next one. And the main thing is that you also just understand how to start a clip and end a clip. So remember, everything can be edited together. So you could easily say, now the next pro of Atlanta is the food. What I love about the food is that blah, blah, blah. And then you can just end. And if you end, you understand an end point, then that makes it easier to stop, pause, look over, look at your next bullet point, and then start back again. So the next pro we wanted to discuss in this video is, and I probably wouldn't even say that's a little too much wordy, but I would say the next pro of living in Atlanta is, the culture. And what I love about the culture is this. Boom, boom, boom. You talk for 2 or 3 minutes, and then that's it. You stop, you look at your other bullet point, and now you get into the cons. Now we're going to talk about the cons and everything that I really don't like about Atlanta. And then you start off. Ultimately, all that gets pieced together. It all gets edited together, and it makes it a very simple format to flow and follow. And therefore, anybody can make, I believe, easily, a 15, 20-minute video, because that's another thing is most people get camera shy in the beginning because they're thinking, how do I talk for the next 10, 15, 20 minutes continuously? Well, you're not doing that either. A 15-minute video is usually just 5 3-minute videos edited together. And whenever and I say a 3-minute video, it's because you're typically talking about one point for about 2 to 3 minutes. Think about that. If I asked you about weather in your city, could you talk about that for 2 to 3 minutes? If I asked you about traffic in your city, could you talk about that for 2 to 3 minutes? If I asked you about culture in your city, could you talk about that for 2 to 3 minutes? If I asked you about home prices or cost of living, could you talk about that for 2 to 3 minutes? Maybe you could talk a little bit longer, but just give yourself that opportunity to expand on that subject a little bit and keep it to 2 to 3 or 4 minutes. And then at some point you may find it's hard to kind of have a cutoff point to stop talking about it. So that's something else to keep in mind. But otherwise, if you have a good process, develop a good flow, and initially you have to do that on paper. But again, if you practice this, you're going to practice. Just because you practice or record something does not mean it has to be published. Now, the last thing we want you to do is get into analysis paralysis as well and do 100 different takes on a video. But if you record a video or two first without the intention of publishing, you might find that it's a lot better than you expected in the first place, and it may be even worth publishing. Once it gets edited, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten finished filming a video and I just go, well, I don't know, I think that was crap, but but I'm not going to do it again. So I think I made all my points. I'll just have to see. And then whenever it gets edited together and B-roll gets added and transitions get added and text gets added, and then I look back because I do review all my videos, and I'll go, oh, actually, that wasn't bad at all. I'm not saying it was perfect and it was the best, but it's definitely publish ready. It's publish worthy. And it is, that is a difficult part about filming video as well, is because you're on one side of it. You're filming, especially in the beginning, it's going to feel awkward because you're going to have those start points, those stop points, and you're going to have those transitions that you have to do on your own. And there's nobody usually around. I mean, you're likely not going to start with a videographer or a partner, just the same way I started. And so it's just me, it's just you out there doing the filming and then going, okay, all right, not a lot of feedback. Now you can watch the clips back, but again, you don't have context. And that's why it's good to shoot a video, I believe, get it to your editor as quickly as possible, because once you get that finished version back, it's going to help you understand so much more of the process. But you've got to get through that first video first, and then you'll probably find out it's not that bad anyways. And the other thing is that, guess what? Nobody's probably going to watch your first video regardless. It's usually not the one that's going to go viral, and you're going to gain a lot of traction initially. So it's something that you just want to get out of the way, get to it. But think about these types of things, understanding what you're going to talk about. I mean, and I'm not saying script out everything, and you can look, some people do that. They want to write out their video, put it on a teleprompter and read it, word for word. And you could do that. I believe that has a lot of time consumption involved in there. And also, most people get the sense whenever you're reading from a teleprompter, if you're not a skilled news anchor like Ron Burgundy, then, most people can tell you're reading from a teleprompter. Now, if you develop that skill, you can also get better at it and make it look extremely natural, like Mr. Burgundy himself. But, that does take practice as well. So I think going back to what we began with as far as walking and memorizing and even getting your real estate license. Think about when you got your real estate license. You get all these books, all these giant books. You're trying to memorize how many square feet are in an acre, and all this stuff that you're wondering, okay, do I really even need this? Am I going to use this in my real estate career? And then you got to take all these tests, and then you got to go to a proctored exam that's timed, and you sit in a little cubicle, and it's all overwhelming. And some people in this room may have not even passed the first time, and they went back. And some people didn't even pass the second time, and they went back again, and they passed the third or possibly the fourth time. But it doesn't matter. You know why? You know what they call the guy that finishes last in medical school? They call him doctor. So, once you're a doctor, once you're a real estate agent, nobody says, hey, what position did you finish in? What number were you in class? Nobody has yet to ask me, what score did I make on my real estate exam? It doesn't matter. You passed it, you stuck with it. It was awkward in the beginning. It was overwhelming. It was a lot of information, and you stuck with it. And I promise you, there's probably somebody in this room that didn't pass it the first time, and maybe even somebody that didn't pass it the second time. But again, they stuck with it and did it. And then think about the first time you wrote a contract, and you wrote that contract and you're going, okay, this thing's 20 pages long. I got to attach 8 addendums to it. And, it's just, I got to send it through DocuSign and load it all here and do this and all this other crazy stuff. And it was a lot. You probably had to call somebody, or you had somebody sit with you and do that. Or you told the client, all right, great. I'm going to go home and write this up and I'll send it over to you in an hour, and then you went home and you panicked and you called somebody, or you had somebody come over, you went to somebody's house, or, and they walked you through that contract and you wrote it up and you stuck with it. And the next time it got a little easier. The third or fourth time it got even easier. Fifth or sixth time, you're probably like, oh, piece of cake. I could do this in my sleep. And then you learn a couple of little shortcuts and things like that, and how to do things more efficiently. And then you keep moving through that process. And now everybody likely writes a contract without even thinking twice about it. So just remind yourself before we give up on video so quickly. And that's what really happens with a lot of people, is because I believe they are either, well, I don't know. I just want to say, if you're doing well in your business, or you're comfortable in your business and you're looking to supplement or add to it, or maybe, this is how you plan to start your business, just remind yourself of all those things that started out difficult in the beginning, that started out awkward, and remind yourself, what did you do to get through those situations? How did you manage that? How did you deal with it? What did you do to get better? What methods did you employ? How did you practice? Did you keep going? It's just, we were at the conference the other day, and they said, if you don't practice with yourself, you're going to practice on your clients. And if you start losing business, well, guess what? It's probably because you're practicing with your clients. So as much as people don't like to go through a flow of a script or a call script or a listing presentation or something like that, it's important to understand that. Now, I've always kind of practiced a sales process or a flow, or critiquing myself. But the thing is that I did that on my own time. So that way, whenever I got with a client, I could be as polished as possible. Same thing for build. We talked about this the last couple of these rooms, is that, that's a big opportunity to speak at build. And I didn't want to mess that up. So you better believe I practiced and I practiced. I train as you fight. That's what we said in the military. Train as you fight. You try to practice. Now, the thing is, practice doesn't always prepare you 100% for the exact situation. You can't account for that until you've actually gone through the exact situation. But you want to train and practice as closely as possible to the live situation, to what's actually going to happen. But the cool thing with video is that, yes, you can redo and recut and reshoot and all that stuff. But at the same time, you don't want it to turn into 20 takes, 20 shots, because guess what? Then you will get frustrated, and it's likely that you could quit. And so if you practice ahead of time, develop a process and a flow for yourself, at least. And maybe that looks like writing it down on paper to say, okay, I'm going to do my hook, and here's my intro, here's my call to action, and then I'm going to transition into this portion of the video. But I need to memorize this first part as well to anchor everything. So that gives me the confidence that I need to make this a little bit easier. And then, you move forward with that. So those would be, I think, just some really helpful things to remember and keep in mind, as you go through this process, or even as you continue through this process. That way, we don't give up, because the one thing I do know is that if you have more than 1 year left in your real estate career, you should be on YouTube. Regardless of whether you want it to be a majority of your business or a portion of your business, I believe it is the gift that keeps on giving. It's the best return of your time, the best use of your time, because one video can last forever. And gain momentum. Chrissy and I were going through, I was actually doing a training yesterday on Zoom, and somebody asked me about shorts. Now, I had written off shorts, last year, whenever they first came out. I was looking at shorts and I tested them for 3 weeks on the channel. And I won't get into that right now, but maybe we could have a separate room on this, Chrissy. So maybe we make a note about doing a room on shorts. But I tested it, and that's the thing. You can test everything. It's okay to test everything. You're not going to tank your channel or blow up your channel or break anything. You'll definitely learn something. Maybe you'll learn a way not to do something, but you're not going to break YouTube. So if you want to test something, test something. If you want to try something different, try something different. What has worked for us does not necessarily work for everybody else. Now, we have a format and a flow that a lot of people have followed, and it has worked very, very well for them. So we do know of some fundamentals and principles that are in place, but ultimately every market is different. Every person is different. Every personality is different, So, if I try to incorporate Porsches into my videos, it's not really my thing. It's Matt's thing. Like, Matt can incorporate supercars and Porsches in his, videos. I wouldn't say dedicate videos to it, but you incorporate that stuff. I mean, it shows a little bit of personality, and there's a way to do that. And especially if he's going to do a luxury video, I think that's a great thing to do. But for me, I'm not driving one. I like the way they look. When I see a cool one on Instagram, I'll send it to Matt. And that's about the extent of my Porsche knowledge, and that's just it. It's just not really my thing. So if I try to copy what Matt does or his enthusiasm for that in my videos, it's just not going to come off that well. And so, with shorts, I tested them for about 3 weeks on the channel when they first came out, after I researched them for about 2 months. But the thing was whenever they first came out, nobody really knew anything about it. And I had several conversations on Clubhouse with several influencers, real estate YouTuber, or not real estate, but just YouTubers in general. And I would have conversations, and everybody would tell me something different about shorts. It's good here, it's bad here, it does this, it does that, it does, this and that. And ultimately it came down to, well, I got to make the decision. Do I want to incorporate it or not? Well, if I'm going to do it, what am I looking for? What is the stopping point? What's the starting point? So I did have a plan for that in place. After about 3 weeks, I didn't necessarily like what I saw. So, that was that. Plus, they weren't really involved in search. And that was kind of the biggest thing, because we preface so much around YouTube on search. They weren't optimized for that. And it wasn't something that YouTube was promoting. Well, all of a sudden, I was doing a training on Monday, actually, and somebody was asking me about shorts, and I was like, well, let's just take a look real quick, and I'll show you some things, what I didn't like. And I went in there, and I had not looked at them at all. Well, whenever I clicked on shorts, which now they have a separate tab in the analytics for it, what I learned is that all of a sudden, in the last month, we've gotten 4,000 views from those shorts we posted well over a year ago. And I started looking at some of the top ones, and they had hockey sticks. After a year, over the last 2 months, they have all regained traction, and their number one driver is search. So now YouTube is pushing search and making shorts searchable. And so we've just gained an extra 4,000 views this last month from videos we posted over a year ago that I had completely written off and hadn't even really dug in to look at them again either. And all of a sudden, and they're bringing us, they brought us like 100 subscribers or so. Pretty interesting. So now Now I've got a whole different thought process, and I have to dig into it a little bit more, that now we may re-implement, some shorts into the channel, which could be very interesting. So those are the things, but I'm always critiquing, always trying to improve, always trying to learn something, always trying to keep an eye out. And the great thing is that training I was doing on Zoom for some people, somebody else asked that question and allowed me to find that opportunity of a new way, of somewhere that I, again, just hadn't looked at in a while. So that's kind of my rant for today there. Matt, are you still hanging out, or are you did I lose you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
well, hey man, want to get your feedback. You seem very camera confident and don't seem like you have too much of an issue getting on there. And I know you do a lot of stuff just off the cuff, especially on Instagram. And how do you transition? Is there a difference for you between kind of doing things off the cuff on Instagram versus sitting down and recording for YouTube? And is there anything that like helps you get ready for that?
Yeah, great question. I think, understanding the different platforms, because I've been a consumer for a long time of social media content and just videos in general. And to me, the interesting thing is that, when you try what works on one on another and it falls pretty flat, you're like, oh, this platform sucks. You're like, this doesn't work over here. Well, yeah, it doesn't work over here because it's a different app completely. It's a different audience completely. And, that was one thing that, if I were going to give, younger Matt any advice about getting on video or getting more confident in video, is just do more of what he was doing. Because I was on Snapchat, doing daily stories, kind of like I do on Instagram now. And when people saw the content, like people that I knew, they were like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I have no idea. I have no idea what I'm doing here as far as video goes." Like, I'm just trying to tell you stories. I'm trying to tell you about, my business, what's going on, what's happening. And, over the course of some time, like 4 years probably, we built a really big audience on that platform. And that platform, just for context, is like no other platform. Like Snapchat, for those of you that are on it now, it didn't look like it does now. Like, it was very, very different. In order to, you talk about like searchability, discoverability on Snapchat, it was virtually impossible outside of your Snap code, which meant I had to be in person. I had to pull up my Snap code, kind of like paying me on Venmo now. I had to pull it up that way. Searching Matt LaMarche would not bring you to my Snapchat channel, if you will. So, starting out there was super difficult because you had no context for any other platform. And then as I got onto YouTube and Facebook, live and recording videos and then posting them there, I really learned a lot more about the audience. For me, it was very, very easy to see the delineation between YouTube and Facebook, as an example, because I could post the exact same video to both platforms natively. And YouTube, when I, use the correct keywords and hashtags and everything else, the intentionality and the engagement that we got there was significantly higher than Facebook. People would watch the Facebook video. They would occasionally, give it a like, throw a heart on it, whatever, but they rarely commented. And I think the reason for that is because Facebook is like, I don't know, the original frontier, if you will, of social media. Like, I can see when Levi comments on someone's thing, and some people don't want to be known as that person. So there was no commenting going on. There was no form of that engagement. So to kind of draw this back to the beginning of what you asked, I think, getting the confidence or getting any sort of comfort level with it, that's all it is. It is comfort. Because none of us are, trained in school, real estate or otherwise, to be on camera. I'm not a professional actor, nor do I play one. And I think the comfort comes from repetition, like over and over and over again. And it's crazy. The reason I documented a lot of my Snapchat stories and converted them into, long form video onto YouTube as like my first probably 150, 200 videos, is because I wanted everyone that heard me in Clubhouse, or everyone that saw me on, Instagram, or that found me via Facebook or any other platform, I wanted to be able to point back to that and go, "You think Matt's good at video, huh? Cool. Go look at my very first video.
Hmm.
It's atrocious. It's the worst video I've ever done, but yet it's still there, and I still posted it for people to see because that was like rep number one, you know. And so years later, I think the comfort comes from the repetition. It's not that I've gotten any better. I definitely think with Instagram and with Facebook stories and with some of these platforms that we now have, you do have the ability to really dial in, you know, to your audience and figure out what they like, what they don't like. You know, we talk about CRMs a lot in real estate, and I'm now going through and tagging past clients. I'm tagging, you know, current clients, potential clients for the way that they reacted to an Instagram post. Did they engage with it? Did they say something nice about it? Did they say something not so nice about it? And honestly, that's just more data. It's more information for me on them, and not because I'm you know, vanity driven by that stuff. I'm talking about like stuff and area of that they have interest. I'm talking about price points. I mean, I'm talking about stuff that is relative to them as one of my potential or past clients. And so for me, I'm using all these different tools to really dial in my audience to understand what's hitting the mark and what's not. And with YouTube, to your point, Levi, the intentionality of YouTube is that I can now go search and find exactly what I'm looking for. And I can watch a 5-minute video on it, or I can watch a 5-hour video on it. And everyone that thinks that, you know, this isn't like blue ocean is sadly mistaken, because probably just in the last year since Levi started talking about this stuff and the results that he was having, there's probably been, I don't know, 5 to 10 agents that I know personally that have started on YouTube, have had success with YouTube, that all live in Atlanta. And I've still yet to have one of my clients call and go, yeah, we saw so-and-so's video over here, but we decided to call you. Or we saw your video and we decided to call them. They don't care. That's not how the lead flow works, you know. And I think that lack of abundance mindset really plays with people. And I'm just as guilty of it as well. But yeah, it's a super interesting time to be in this industry. And I mean, just what you guys have done with your team on it, but what people on the individual level are having success with is just, it's unbelievable. It's really a great time to not just get into video in general, but start putting in those repetitions. And if you're worried about what people are going to say, you know, I can probably count on one hand how many people were like super critical to my face about my videos. I know. So if anything, you give me confidence just to be able to have, you know, meaningful dialogue with those people more than anything.
That's interesting. You've actually had some people give you critical feedback on your YouTube videos?
Well, most of it's been like jokey, like, you know, it's the people that don't understand that, you know, us as real estate agents, we understand a couple of things. In order for us to transact together, to do business together, at some point, you have to see my face a lot.
Yeah.
Because you don't buy a house every day. You don't buy a house every month,
Yep.
every year. So you have to see me over and over and over again. And I've had people that, when I started with video in real estate, at least back in 2019, literally reach out to me and say, look, we just bought a house like a month ago, but the next one will buy with you, or the next one will sell with you. And only because of that repetition with stories and with YouTube and with Facebook. Because now, and it's funny, we were doing a Porsche drive a couple of weeks ago, and this guy came up to me, he's like, man, I feel like you're Matt Lamarche, the celebrity, blah, blah, blah. I see your videos everywhere, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I mean, that's awesome. That's how it should be. Like, that's the feedback that you should be getting. Because even though people have been critical to me about it, it's not, like, I don't take those people seriously. I really don't. I really, really don't. And honestly, if you can put your ego aside and just try to understand the consumer mindset, you'll be so much better off anyway. You won't care what people think.
Yeah. Yeah, the only criticism I've gotten in videos is from the comments, and that's usually it's usually always like a sleazy real estate salesperson. It's like, look, I'm just trying to convey the opportunity here or there, or and really I pretty much stay neutral in most of my videos. It's just showing the areas and things like that, and then of course talking about good and bad and what I like and what I don't like. And it's funny, but yeah, I mean, it's something that is not even a consideration. But, you know, going back to the other channels, YouTube tells us in our analytics, the top 15 channels that our audience watches. and 10 out of the top 15 are Dallas real estate channels, and 8 of those have popped up since we've started. So they're not going to stop. Do you think in 6 months to 12 months and beyond, but let's just even say 6 months, do you think there will be more agents in your area on YouTube or less? And then do you want to be ahead of them, or do you want to be behind them? Or do because I know in 6 months or 12 months, you're either going to say, I wish I had, or I'm glad I did. And my viewpoint is, jump the gun, not only try to be sooner rather than later, but more than the other person. So that's volume as well. If there are 2, 3, 4, 5 people in your area, that's not competition. But what are they doing? How many are they posting? Can you outwork them? Can you outpublish them? Those are questions you have to ask yourself. Or are you okay with one video a week and waiting, for that opportunity for it to supplement your business? Maybe you're doing well and you just want to have the presence. I believe you can scale your social media to the amount of volume and business you want to do. So those are the questions you have to do. I want to get to, we got a couple of people up here. So I wanted to get to Abdul. Abdul, if you're there, let me know. I see you here. Did you have a question? If you're still around, or you may just be listening and hanging out. I believe it's Abdul. Are you there, my man? If not, we can jump over to Marvelous. Marvelous, are you hanging out, or do you have a question or anything we can help you out with today?
Oh, hi. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
My name is Serhant. I own a marketing agency. It's called MSol Agency. And I love everything that you guys are talking about here. I've been learning a lot. And I just wanted to say that the people that are in the audience, if anyone need a content creator or a social media manager or need help running their social media page, I would love to help out.
All right. Well, thank you for the pitch. So I guess we don't really stipulate in here as well, but okay. So if anybody else has any questions, feel free to raise your hand, come up on stage. And if not, then actually I've got a hard stop in 11 minutes anyway. So I'm okay with closing it down. Chrissy, are you still with us? You hanging out there?
Oh yeah, I'm always here.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to add in on the camera confidence discussion here?
Yes. I mean, what people always ask me, when we get on video editing calls and people they get so worried that their videos are going to come out poorly, or that they're going to I mean, I've even gotten questions from people who've been like, are you guys going to think that I'm dumb? Like, I mean, I even think that some people think that we're going to judge you on the editing side too. And just to let you know, like 2 or 3 things. Number one, once you send something to an editor, editing is magic. And things, we cut out your swallows, we cut out, if you trip on the sidewalk, or we'll play it up if you're Levi, like we can do magical things in editing. And so a lot of stuff that you think is really, really obvious or really, really, bad on your side, it's probably going to be smoothed out in the editing process. So don't overthink that. The other thing is that a lot of times, like I joke all the time because, when Levi trips in a video, I tell my team, I used to be the one who edited the videos. And so I had lots of fun with that. Or when he goes and he starts talking to animals, go back and watch some of our videos and you'll see he's the animal whisperer. But I love to play up some of those things because those are the things that people see as so authentic. I mean, even with Matt, like I remember one of the comments that somebody had on Matt's videos was that his video or that his windows were dirty or something like that. And I'm like, if that's the worst kind of criticism that you get on your video, then you're probably doing a good job, right? Like if you have a dirty car window and that's the worst thing, then I think your video is pretty good. So, I mean, ultimately, the people who are going to give you criticism probably aren't even looking to move to your area. The people who are looking at your videos are looking for the content. So don't get too tied up with the details. And also know that a lot of even our worst videos out there, they kind of speak to who we are anyway. I mean, going back to Matt, I remember like when we looked over his channel, initially when we were looking over things and getting started with him, I went back way back just to kind of see where he started and where he was now, getting some styling information, seeing what we could do to improve. And I noticed one of his videos that was cut pretty raw. I mean, it was probably done with an older camera. It wasn't the greatest quality, but it has quite a few views. I'm trying to remember which one it was, but I mean, it's got quite a few views on it. And so ultimately at the end of the day, good content, we can get past, you know, not the greatest filming, because you'll get better with time. So just get out there very best, and you know, ultimately you're going to learn from your experiences and it will just make your videos better. So,
you know, that's a great point. Is our number one viewed video on our YouTube channel is the We Can't Stand Dallas. It's Travis and I. He walked in on the middle whenever I was filming it, literally walked in the
That's
middle
right.
of, I was at my house filming it, and he just walks in, you know, barges in the middle of it. And then I was like, well, hey, you want to jump in the video? And I gave him a mic. And what we had at the time, we had transmitter mics that have channels. Actually, you would set channel settings on them. What I didn't know that you had to be on different channels if you're going to be standing next to each other. So whenever I put on his mic and then we start talking, what happens is my mic cuts out, and then you're only picking up my audio from his mic, which makes me sound, anyways. When I look back at it, I'm like, oh my God, train wreck. It's terrible. I mean, the audio is not bad, but it's not anywhere that I would want to be, what I would want to be in a video. But in the end, it was like, well, we filmed that thing, and we sat there and we just went back and forth and chatted it up. And then it came out to like a 28-minute video. It was 28 minutes because then it was the two of us. He interrupted me. We left that part in there, and the audio cut, you know, is not the greatest, and it's our number one video. And it pains me. No, it's all right, but it's good. You know, it's just funny because we left the screw ups in there. We didn't go back and try to reshoot it, because I tell you what, when you film a 30-minute video, I'm not going to redo it. Probably I'm going to be like, I'm just going to live with the pain of it not being perfect. So, you know, that was it. So anyways, that's funny. And yeah, I mean, you just work through that stuff and keep going. And yes, Chrissy loved to play up my trips. So they put it in slow motion, played it back, rewind. I mean, all kinds of stuff. But luckily I never completely bit the pavement. I caught myself every time, but there's several, probably at least 3 or 4 times I've caught a curb or two and nearly planted. But yes, I do love animals as well. And will randomly encounter dogs and cats and other things in my videos. And I just, I got to stop and say hello. You know, you got to stop and pet the animals anytime you encounter one.
And I've got to go back and watch.
He's a horse whisperer in one of them. So I want to say it's the Parker vlog.
Oh, well, actually that one, I do know that, I think it was University Park. I got that cat. I got to come like from a pretty good distance away. That cat came up to me, and then it started following me around for about 3 houses. So
the animals love him. He had a dog at the lake house. I mean, he's got all kinds of animals that follow him around.
Oh yeah, that's right. The lake life video, that dog was super cool. And I was out there like 6:30 in the morning trying to catch the sunrise. And all I heard was little bells jingling off in the distance. And I was like, what is that? I was like, is the ice cream man coming? Is that the ice cream truck? I was like, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden this little fluffy dog comes running up to me, and we just hang out. We have a good time. So leave that stuff in. If you know, we talk about this, and I'm going to close out with this, is we talk about don't show your cards. We've talked about this a lot lately, and it's and I referenced that point like whenever I was on stage, when I made the mistake of practicing my speech. You know, I knew I had a 20-minute time limit, but I practiced going from 0 to 20 minutes versus on stage, the countdown timer is from 20 minutes to 0. So I knew exactly where I needed to be in the timestamp in my slides. And whenever I looked down, it was 5 minutes off because it was counting down instead of counting up. Well, that threw me it threw me literally right in the middle of the speech. And I was like, I was like, am I 5 minutes ahead? Am I 5 minutes behind? I literally could not compute what had happened. I was like, where did I go wrong? I practiced this so many times, but I just kept going. I was like, well, it is what it is now. And I didn't stop. And especially in front, you don't do that in front of 6,000 agents. I didn't stop and go, oh my God, I'm way behind. Oh my God, I'm way ahead. Oh my God. And sometimes you'll see speakers do that, and they'll be like, oh man, I got to hurry up. I'm way off. Or, but I kept going. And what happened is that I was still on time. I just didn't, I practiced the wrong way on the timer. So I ended up finishing 1 minute early, which that was one of my major goals, was to not go over, because they're running such a tight ship. You want to be respectful of the event and the venue and the staff and everybody else, because they ask you specifically, do not go over. So that's what I had to do. So, don't worry about it. I got to cut it off. I got a hard stop. I've got to jump on this call at 11. Matt LaMarche from Atlanta, Georgia, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great to chop it up. Chrissy, thank you. And to everyone else that joined us today, thank you.
My pleasure, man.
See you.
Thank you for joining us on today's podcast. If you're interested in partnering with us to access our YouTube course and coaching all for free, schedule a call at 5starstrategycall.com.